Will science in and of itself lead a person to believe that the earth is less than about 10,000 years old? Many young-age creationists believe that there is little to no evidence supporting the antiquity of the earth. In other words, using science and science alone, the sincere seeker of truth will come to see that the earth, and in fact the entire universe, is less than about 10,000 years old. Consider this statement from a well-known creationist organization. If a person were given science tools but had no preconceived notion about the universe, would purely objective observations lead that person to believe in a billions of years old earth and universe? By no means, since so many features look so young. Although I appreciate the intent of these authors, and although I agree with their young age creationist convictions, I would have to disagree about this statement based on a straightforward reading of Genesis 1. You see, the Bible testifies to the supernatural creation of a mature universe out of nothing in just 6 days. Imagine just for a moment sitting on a mountain on day 6 of creation week, looking up into the sky and observing the moon and the stars. Massive 380-foot high sequoias surround you, themselves following the contour of a raging river for hundreds of miles until it empties into a massive ocean. Now, without God telling you, would you really believe that all of this came into existence naturally in just 6 days? I think the obvious answer here would be no. Now, the other reason why I think that this statement is in error is because research from many leading young age creationists really seems to leave me with no other option. Consider the moon cratering hypothesis put forward by Danny Faulkner from Answers in Genesis. In his hypothesis, Faulkner proposes that most of the moon's 10,000 craters formed on day 4 of creation week. Anticipating objections, Faulkner says some recent creationists may respond that that's the moon cratering hypothesis, is the same as the evolutionary history of the solar system. However, this process would have been very rapid, taking a day or less to accomplish rather than millions of years. Now, if what Faulkner is saying is true, that supernatural rates of change sort of created the moon's surface, then how might this evidence be interpreted today by scientists who have only ever experienced natural rates of change? Well, using science and science alone, wouldn't they conclude that the surface of the moon is millions or billions of years old? John Baumgartner, another well-known and respected young-age creationist, has a similar view for the formation of the Earth. He believes that the Earth's core and crust differentiated from the Earth's mantle using naturalistic-like magma fractionation processes during creation week. He says this means, in my opinion, the processes of nuclear transmutation, mantle convection, magma generation and cooling, together with a spectrum of tectonic and geologic processes, must have unfolded at rates many orders of magnitude faster than we observe today. In other words, during creation week, God used supernatural rates of change in order to form the Earth's core, mantle and crust. Now, if Baumgartner is right, then how might that evidence be interpreted today by scientists? Wouldn't they conclude that the formation of the Earth took millions and billions of years? That Baumgartner thinks so is made quite evident just a few pages later, where he says this: I propose that on the order of 4.5 billion years worth of nuclear decay at present rates unfolded rapidly in the Earth before the end of day 3. Now, since according to Baumgartner, 4.6 billion years worth of radioactive decay is recorded in the Earth's crust, then this evidence, and without recourse to biblical revelation, well, it could only be interpreted in terms of 4.6 billion years of real Earth history, right? In other words, this evidence, right or wrong, speaks to the antiquity of the Earth. Andrew Snelling from Answers in Genesis, he seems to understand the implication of these creation week processes. Speaking of rapid erosion and deposition of sediments during creation week, he says this: "What is clear from the biblical record is that the perception of a human observer on the earth during creation week would have been that countless millions of years of earth history at uniformitarian rates had been compressed into 6 days of normal human experience." So once again, using science and science alone, how might a secular scientist interpret these supernaturally deposited sediments? Now, it seems quite clear that without the aid of special revelation, they will use the present rates of sedimentary deposition to interpret these sediments in terms, as Snelling says, of millions and millions of years. Now, I happen to agree with all three of these creationists and think that their hypotheses are really helpful. But here's the kicker. If what they are saying is true, then 99.9% of the Earth and Moon's presently existing geology formed through these supernatural rates of change during creation week. Now, unless I'm missing something, that means that 99.9% of the Earth and Moon's presently existing geology will be interpreted in terms of millions and or billions of years. And I think that is why the writer to the Hebrews tells us that by faith we understand that the universe was created by the word of God. Here the writer is calling our attention back to the book of Genesis, not to the book of nature. You can see now why I disagree with this conclusion. Of course, rocks and fossils deposited after creation week, but especially those deposited during Noah's flood, should and do contain young age indicators indicative of a 6,000-year-old biosphere and catastrophic geologic processes. In general, however, the Bible bears testimony to the miracle of creation, that God supernaturally created and formed a universe in just 6 days. And this means that without recourse to divine revelation, the unbelieving human will only interpret this maturity in terms of process and vast amounts of time. What is required, as the writer of the Hebrews tells us, is faith in God's revealed word. Well, that's all from me, Ken Coulson, here at Creation Unfolding. Go ahead and punch that like button right now, please, if in any way you were blessed by this video. Look, subscribe and ring the bell as well for greater and easier access to these videos as I upload them. Of course, there's a website, creationunfolding.com. There's a book if you're interested as well. I have a donate button now. You can find the link to that in the description. And look, the most important thing that you can do is to pray for me. I really need prayer. If you could spend just a few seconds and pray for me for strength and the ability to continue to put out good content, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you and goodbye.